Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating and, honestly, highly specific text. It's a Lunar New Year message penned by Shufeng, and it maps out the incredibly rigorous path to achieving what's known as sainthood at a place called Life Chuanyuan University. We're going to break down these 8 specific revelations, gathered from studying folks who've actually reached this peak. We'll look at exactly what it takes, according to this source, to elevate your mind, your actions, and your spirit to this extraordinary level.
Now, to really grasp the gravity of these revelations, we first have to look at the sheer exclusivity of this achievement. Think about this. Over a 20-year endeavor at the university, out of all the students who dedicated their lives to this pursuit, only 7 individuals graduated as saints. Just 7 people in 2 whole decades. That's incredibly rare. The insights we're unpacking today are distilled directly from analyzing these 7 specific graduates. Because this sample size is so tiny, the traits they share give us a highly concentrated literal blueprint of this philosophical path.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to map these 8 revelations across 4 distinct stages of spiritual evolution. Number 1, the foundation. 2, the practice. 3, the mindset. And 4, the spirit. All right, starting with section 1, the foundation, which focuses on time and clarity.
The very first revelation tackles the harsh reality of time. Sainthood in this philosophy, it's absolutely never an overnight process. The text actually points out that among those 7 graduates, the absolute shortest path to reach sainthood was 13 years. The longest? 20 years. So, this clearly demands long-term study, relentless practice, and an unwavering persistence that spans decades, not just a few days or months.
So what exactly is happening during all those decades? Well, the second revelation states that a clear mind is the primary prerequisite for sainthood. But what does that actually mean in practice? According to the source, these 7 individuals have minds capable of cutting through the noise to distinguish priorities and deeply understand sequences. They aren't just meditating in a void, they're producing profound, well-structured writings. Their cognitive framework is incredibly organized. To put it bluntly, if you lack clarity of mind, if you're confused or muddled in your thinking, you have absolutely zero hope of achieving this state. It's just impossible. The text grounds this whole spiritual journey in rigorous cognitive clarity. You literally have to be able to discern what matters most. Without that mental foundation, the entire architecture of sainthood just collapses before it's even built.
Moving on to section 2, the practice. This is all about action and emotion.
And this brings us to the third revelation, which draws a really stark comparison between what's rejected and what's required. The text notes that these saints never indulge in empty slogans or superficial rhetoric. Basically, they aren't just talking a good game about being spiritual. Instead, they operate with consistent action and grounded effort. Over a decade or more, they scarcely waste a single day. Their entire focus is devoted to practically refining their non-material lives and their daily work. Sainthood, as the text argues, is forged through action, not just words.
But here's the catch. Relentless action isn't enough on its own. The 4th revelation introduces a massive emotional constraint. The text declares that sainthood is strictly reserved for the emotionally stable. So all that relentless daily action we just talked about, it has to be seamlessly paired with extreme emotional regulation. It's this intense dual requirement of high output and total unwavering internal calm.
Let's zoom in on what emotional stability actually looks like in this framework. The text lists some very specific behaviors: consistently praising others, never harming anyone, holding zero resentment or blame, never calculating personal gains or losses, and tirelessly working in silence. So the crucial point here is that continuously giving and contributing without ever demanding a single thing in return is a totally non-negotiable core requirement.
Now we shift inward to section 3, the mindset, covering focus and detachment.
The 5th revelation demands absolute, unshakable focus. The text points out that once these folks embark on the path, they never waver. It doesn't matter if the external environment gives them clear skies and smooth sailing or fierce torrential storms. They stay entirely locked in. They don't get distracted, and they definitely don't look backward. The guiding quote here is that saints embrace the one and become a model for the world, which really highlights a singular, unbreakable commitment to their chosen path.
And this level of focus is tested in some pretty fascinating ways. In the 6th revelation, Headmaster Shufeng shares this anecdote where he might intentionally use bad math as a test, telling his students 3 times 8 equals 23. And you know the remarkable thing? The saints never argue with him about it.
and this brilliantly illustrates the concept of non-attachment. The text clarifies that their refusal to argue isn't because they somehow think the math is actually correct, or because they're just blindly obedient. Instead, it proves they've transcended the self. They've reached such a profound state of selflessness that they are completely detached from that ego-driven need to be right or to correct someone else over trivial matters. It's literally the ultimate dissolution of the ego.
This extreme mental detachment extends right into their physical reality, too. The text reinforces that, materially, they possess nothing. Achieving this state requires total unselfishness. They dedicate everything they have to their home and to what the text calls the kingdom of the greatest creator. So their internal detachment from the ego perfectly mirrors their external detachment from material wealth.
Finally, we arrive at Section 4, the Spirit, which is all about joy and purpose. Now, what's really interesting about this is you might naturally assume that someone who never argues and works silently for 20 years would be super solemn, serious, and rigid, right? But the seventh revelation throws us an unexpected twist. The text completely rejects that assumption. It reveals that these individuals are actually vibrant, cheerful, lively, romantic, optimistic, and even childlike and playful. They're full of life, completely shattering that stereotype of the stiff, humorless ascetic. And that leads us to the eighth revelation, which outlines the ultimate direction of all this joyful energy. The text states that a saint must be constantly walking toward the paradise of heaven. They hold the well-being of all beings in their hearts. Without these incredibly high aspirations and unwavering faith, the philosophy says sainthood is completely unattainable.
Plus, this forward momentum isn't just a nice idea. It's an operational requirement. The text explains that without this continuous walking toward paradise, the state of sainthood simply cannot be sustained. It's not a finish line where you just cross it, stop, and rest. It's a permanent, ongoing state of joyful, purposeful forward motion for the benefit of everyone.
A gift for humanity. Xulfang doesn't just present these 8 revelations as some exclusive set of rules for a select few. He actually frames them as a specific Lunar New Year's gift to all of humanity. As this quote beautifully illustrates, his ultimate wish is that everyone on Earth could achieve this state of clarity, emotional stability, and selflessness. It's all driven by this grand hope of transforming our entire world into a paradise of joyful, free, and blissful lives. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a direct question to chew on. We've just mapped out a rigorous 20-year framework of spiritual evolution. Which of these concepts, whether it's striving for deeper mental clarity, practicing radical emotional stability, or maybe just cultivating a more childlike joy in your daily routine, will you try to integrate into your own habits this year? Thank you so much for joining us to explore this today, and keep seeking clarity.